two great guests later in the show. Steve Baker, Blaze Media reporter, who was arrested today, Mr. Producer, by the Biden regime, by an all-powerful expanding police state. And he's going to come on the program and explain exactly what took place and what happened on January 6th, because this is so out of control, so completely out of control. And, of course, the media are defending him. Nothing. Crickets. So I want to get into that, and we have a guest in the third hour. He's a conservative. Of course, they're smearing him. The rhinos are smearing him in Utah, who is running for the United States Senate to replace Romney. Sooner the better. Sooner the better. So there's a lot to cover. I want to start with these legal cases, and we're going to move into the immigration issues. A lot going on today with that. I want to go on to Joe Biden now wants to airlift aid into Gaza. No other place on the face of the earth, by the way. He doesn't want to airlift aid to the Uyghurs. He doesn't want to airlift food to the people in Syria. He doesn't want to airlift food. It's Gaza. So Joe Biden has finally made his decision. He will be on the side of evil against good. He will be on the side of terrorists against democracy. He will be on the side of his Islamist base, led by Tlaib and other Jew haters and America haters. And I just hope people take this into consideration. This is a huge moral decision, whether you're going to stand with terrorists or not. Joe Biden stood with the white supremacists, segregationists, and racists, and now he stands with terrorists. As I said the other day, October 7th was backed by Iran. It was Iran's idea, but it was paid for by Joe Biden. We're going to discuss all these things, by the way, on Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. Eastern Time Saturday. We also have our Sunday show, Life, Liberty, and Levin Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, same place. If you're not sure if you're going to be able to watch it live, please go ahead and set your DVRs, because these are two killer shows. Sunday's show, we're going to have Chip Roy and Ted Cruz. And on Saturday's show, in my opening, I make a strong defense of America's founding and Christianity. Because if I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. Let's be honest. Now, we have a very interesting decision out of the D.C. Circuit. Now, I don't know who was on the three-judge panel, and that makes all the difference in the world because it's become a very radical circuit. But I suspect that for the most part, it was not the radical judges. And this is how ABC News writes at Alexander Malin. A D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals panel issued a ruling really recently, late this afternoon, that could impact scores of prison terms handed down to rioters convicted and sentenced for joining the January 6, 2021 assault on the U.S. Capitol. That's their sentence. Because a lot of the people in prison didn't assault anything or anyone. And I've been behind this microphone condemning even a judge that I've known for decades for the kinds of sentences that they've been issuing against these people. Way out of line. Way out of line. And no, I'm not talking about people who assault cops. I'm talking about the vast majority of those that are put in prison who didn't assault cops. The three-judge panel ruled that defendants convicted of obstructing the congressional certification had received improper enhancements of their sentences from district court judges who determined their actions amounted to, quote, substantial interference with the administration of justice, unquote. The challenge to the enhancement was brought in the case of convicted rioter Larry Brock, as they write, who was sentenced in 2023 to 2 years in prison for his felony conviction of obstructing Congress's work. In their ruling, you know, most of these people have not been able to get a fair shake. The judges are treating them like it's an assembly line. They barely even listen to their cases. I've had people observing this and getting back to me. It's just one after another after another. Judges are barely awake while they're listening to these cases. It's a disgusting spectacle. In their ruling, the panel of judges upheld Brock's conviction, but ordered the district judge overseeing his case to resentence him and remove the enhancement he had previously included, which in many instances has paved the way for judges to increase the lengths of prison terms for rioters for more than a year. And many of them are not rioters. Let's be blunt. Many of them are quote-unquote trespassers. But ABC News is not a real news organization. So many of these people have gotten enhanced sentences. Substantial interference with the administration of justice. Why? Because they didn't substantially interfere with the administration of justice. Some of them were roaming around in the Capitol building. Some of them were waved in to the Capitol building by security and did absolutely nothing. Some of them were there literally for minutes and turned around and left. And they got enhanced sentences. In the ruling, the panel of judges again, they ordered the judge in Brock's case, and I suppose in the rest of the cases, to look at these enhanced sentences and to reverse them. It's not immediately clear, they write, whether the Justice Department plans to appeal the ruling. That is to the full court. You see, they didn't afford Donald Trump that right. And they ruled on the immunity issue. It had go straight to the Supreme Court, and he had 6 days. But now, of course, the government, and that includes the court, will not do the same thing to itself. So they may appeal it to the full court. Could impact scores of cases already handed down by judges in cases where they accepted similar enhancements recommended by prosecutors. Basically, what you're getting are rubber-stamped judges with the prosecutors in Washington, D.C. This is why one of the key things that the House Judiciary Committee must look into, and if the Senate goes Republican, that committee must look into, and it's something I'm going to be pushing very, very hard, is breaking up the cabal of judges in Washington, D.C., breaking up their jurisdiction. There's no reason for this. None. And because all these cases right now are funneled through the most liberal district courts, the most liberal circuit court, Congress has the power under the United States Constitution to break that up. Because these district courts and the circuit court in Washington, D.C. were all created by Congress. The number of judges on these courts created by Congress. They write, the argument boils down to whether the administration of justice enhancement should apply to the congressional proceedings that were disrupted during the January 6th attack. Prosecutors have argued the statute fits, quote-unquote, comfortably with the certification as it involved Congress's performance of duties required by law, while defense attorneys have insisted and argued it should narrowly apply to judicial or grand jury proceedings. They're talking about this obstruction, in part, under the Enron law, which has gone all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court needs to address it because nothing fits comfortably within that. Nothing. So if Congress wants to pass a new law or change the law, it can do it. But prosecutors, the Department of Justice, and rogue judges cannot. The appeals court panel agreed with Brock's argument, ruling administration of justice does not extend to the unique congressional function of certifying electoral college votes. The plain, natural, ordinary meaning of the phrase administration of justice is the governmental process of investigating, determining, and enforcing the legal rights of persons, the panel said. Yeah, this definitely was not a panel of a bunch of wide-eyed leftists on this court. The ruling comes as the Justice Department is preparing to make its case before the Supreme Court to not overturn a key felony obstruction charge used against hundreds of rioters and protesters that defense attorneys have argued stretches beyond what the statute intended. It clearly does. It clearly does. The Enron obstruction issue dealing with, the destruction of documents by executives in anticipation of investigations and congressional hearings has absolutely nothing to do with what took place on January 6th. And every one of these damn judges know it. They wish it did, so they rewrite the statute. These are supposed to be judges. They're supposed to be referees. Arguments over the obstruction of an official proceeding charge, which is also among the charges special counsel Smith brought in his indictment against former President Trump, are scheduled for next month. So you can see that what Jack Smith has done, what the Biden administration has done, is they've raised all these issues and they've created all these constitutional confrontations. Taking a statute that dealt with Enron, executive corporations that are under investigation or potentially under investigation, potential hearings in front of Congress, they destroy the materials and so forth. So Congress passes this law narrowly focused on these kinds of business activities, and they apply it to Trump and they apply it to these protesters. It has nothing to do with it. Zero. And every one of these damn district court judges swallowed it whole and then went beyond. Prosecutors going, we need an enhancement. These people were trying to prevent the actual electoral college from being voted on. Okay. Even if you're right, which you're not, since it wasn't an insurrection, since nobody's even been charged with violence. In fact, only a handful have been charged with an insurrection, which has only been used since the damn Civil War. Even the Puerto Rican independence nationalist movement, which from the House gallery shot numerous members of the House of Representatives, one in the chest. They were not even charged with insurrection. How many people were shot by the insurrectionists, quote unquote, on January 6th? Not one. Some insurrection. Even the insurrection statute doesn't apply. Even the sedition and conspiracy, commit sedition, they didn't apply. Not a single on the books, in the criminal code, charge involving violence, except those who actually harmed police officers, were charged. These were trespassers at a maximum, the overwhelming majority, and they've gotten prison sentences. And they've had enhanced sentences on obstruction, on an obstruction statute that doesn't even fit what they did. Now, that's before the Supreme Court because Jack Smith pushed the issue. Immunity's in front of the Supreme Court because Jack Smith pushed the issue. The speed with which these trials are to be held was before the Supreme Court, which rejected it because Jack Smith pushed the issue. The issue of whether you can charge a president with a violation of the Espionage Act, which clearly wasn't intended, because Jack Smith pushed the issue. The lack of due process for Donald Trump when it came to attorney-client privilege in the documents case, because Jack Smith pushed the issue. And now Jack Smith drags his sorry ass down to Florida, and he and his people tell U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon, well, we don't think when we're interviewing jurors through this process, voir dire and so forth, that Trump's lawyers should be able to ask anybody about their voting records. Why? Because Jack Smith wants to take all rights, all processes away. He wants to have a jury not of Trump's peers, but of his making. He wants to create the process by which Donald Trump would be tried. He has burned the Constitution in 1,000 different ways.